Welcome to the Outer Realm with Michelle DeRoche and Amelia Pisano. Airing live on the United Public Radio Network, 105.3 FM in New Orleans.
Good evening, everyone, or for now, I'll say good afternoon, because you are listening to a pre-recorded segment of the Outer Realm. We are going to be broadcasting this live this evening, and I think you guys are really going to enjoy it. But anyway, this is one of those pre-recorded because our amazing friend and guest is all the way from the UK. So with that being said, let's get official. The Outer Realm is fully sponsored by the amazing folks over at Folgers Coffee, whom we love and appreciate. That they've been with us from day one, which is pretty awesome. We would also like to thank our sponsor, Dr. Snick, aka Justin Snicker, for his contribution of time and music, and of course his voice for the intro and outro that you've been hearing. He is an award-winning composer of Halloween, horror, sci-fi, and dark wave electronic music, which can be found pretty much everywhere. So we do welcome back the return of our friend and returning guest. He's almost like a co-host now, both Carl and Hamilton. But tonight, Hamilton will be joining us. Carl is unable to make it due to family commitments, but we will be, looking at stuff in the new year as well. So sorry that he'll be missing us. We will be discussing out-of-place anomalies and artifacts, and why would the Men in Black be specifically interested in this collection? So, in order to hear the show tonight, please head on over to the YouTube pages, International Public Radio, UFO Gods and Extraterrestrials, UFO, whatever, I'm always bumbling on that one, UFO Paranormal Radio YouTube pages. Amelia and I will be bouncing around between the Facebook pages and the YouTube. I most certainly will be able to. I shouldn't be speaking for Amelia. She's probably thinking, what? I have something I've got to do. No,
I go wherever you go.
Okay, so yeah, it's nice and easy.
You know that.
I know. It's nice and easy. It's just exactly
follow the leader.
Exactly. Exactly. So a little bit of a treat tonight because we're going to be starting off a little bit differently. But I'm going to bring Hamilton in first.
Yay.
Hamilton, hello.
Am I with you?
It's the amazing hat. How are you?
Yeah, good actually. I wasn't sure I was connected. I was incredibly impressed with your hand gesture towards your pot of coffee and your mug. That was brilliant. That was
it's like Price is Right.
Professional.
It's all those years of Price is Right in Vanna.
It's fantastic.
I know.
I was going to have a go at something like that myself, because I found this amazing stuff underneath my desk. It's called beer. Look at that. Brilliant. And there's a whole crate of it under my desk. What about that? Oh, lovely.
Wow. You should have just printed off a Folgers label and put it over top of this thing.
But what's funny is that there's Americans that won't drink that American beer. But
this is true. But we're going to leave that right there. But, speaking of our sponsor, I'm thinking, okay, I have not forgotten that last segment.
They watched. They watched it, Hamilton.
Yeah? Okay.
They watched.
Oh yeah, no, they actually watch the show. They love it, specifically your guys' episode. So this is how we're going to start this episode. I'm going to give you some Folgers fun facts.
Okay.
Redemption. So here we go. And one of them I think you're going to be very surprised with. So Benjamin Franklin was a relation to the Folgers family. His father was Peter Folger and was an ancestor of the founder of Folgers Coffee. The grandmother was Mary Folger, one of the first settlers of Nantucket, and also an ancestor of a long line of Folgers and harpooners. believe it or not, harpooners. That goes back at least to the 1600s when they left, wait for it, they left Norwich, England, and headed for America. So British descent. I know. I thought you'd really dig that.
Fascinating. That's wonderful.
I know.
Crazy.
And they even made up, they made their way into the book Moby Dick, because the Folgers clan of Nantucket from, of course, Norwich, England, were renowned for their whaling efforts, hence the reference in the book, a long line of Folgers and harpooners. Wow. So the coffee was founded in 1850, and by 1963, Folgers had become America's #1 coffee brand and is still in the top 5 bestsellers even today. And they're now joined by another part of their company, the J.M. Smucker Company. Dunkin' Donuts, Pillsbury, and Jams. I love it. Yay. So I know. So they've got
coffee
like amazing fun food too, which you and I both really love.
Where's our donuts?
Where's our donuts?
We don't have Dunkin' Donuts in Canada either, but
I know. It's like, what?
I know that you could put it across the border in Buffalo to Michelle's house in less than 25 minutes. So we're willing to take that risk.
Just hook it up to a drone and throw it across the river.
Fly it over.
Right on the other side.
I'll be in her driveway.
I know. So I thought you would find it interesting that the family is actually British descent.
And they decided to create a coffee rather to a tea. It's quite interesting.
I thought so too.
That would be like Rome coming to Canada and instead of espresso, making tea.
Yeah, that would be different, wouldn't it?
It would be really strange. Yeah.
But anyway, that is our Folgers redemption.
Your redemption of well, I can add to your knowledge.
Oh no!
Seriously, I'm telling you, you're gonna love it.
I love it.
I've been researching it further because the original Mr. Folger, he was actually nothing to do with the coffee business. He was employed as a carpenter to build the original coffee mill and ended up owning the place. Good man.
That's right.
Mm-hmm. Very enterprising. Right. We like that.
That's also true.
Oh boy.
That's right.
Okay. You think we get me a free coffee mug yet?
Oh, it's coming.
Okay.
It's coming. I have to have them made. So I'm going to be sending one for you and Carl, and it's going to be coming to your place because I have your address. And every time you come on, we're going to be having a nice cup of Folgers coffee.
Feel free to send a replica hat. Really,
or a chalice.
Not a chalice. I don't care for the chalice. I care for the hat.
You just want a hat. Okay, no worries.
It's my Templar roots. I don't know. That's life something.
Well, I mean, knowing I was going to sort of be here on my own because Carl's doing sort of family looking after sick people.
Yeah.
I've made an extra effort to do some preparation because I've actually been drinking beer since about lunchtime to sort of get myself in the right mood to talk about sort of weird stuff and the rest of it.
Well, so you're falling behind. That's only 6 hours.
Yeah,
I know.
You need to catch up.
Yeah.
I know, but that's okay. That means the show and tell is going to be really interesting.
Definitely. I found some things out that I hadn't actually bothered to mention to you. I'd forgotten about them.
Okay. So where do you want to start with all of this? For those who don't know, out of place artifacts or mysterious anomalies, back in the day, the world, it's a pretty interesting place, and it does every now and then give up its secrets. And I think this is one of those cases of the whatever the powers that may be is giving up secrets, and somehow you've ended up with them. So why don't we let you just take off with it, and we'll just jump in every now and then.
I mean, I think when you look at history generally, not everything is correct, as I think most people know, particularly in terms of times and dates. And, you look at the construction of the pyramids, how fantastic it is, and amazing brickwork and stonework in South America. Yes. Nobody actually knows when exactly this stuff was made. There's plenty of estimates of dates, but there are lots of anomalies. I mean, how were people cutting stones quite so accurately? not just in one place, but I mean all over the world.
Yeah.
You know, is it a lost technology, or, you know, nobody in science at the moment can answer all of these questions.
Mm-hmm.
And the other thing you find when you start getting into history is how it suits a lot of academics just simply to change things because it doesn't actually fit quite what they want it to be.
Yes.
And I mean, it took nearly 100 years for the Smithsonian to actually admit that they were deliberately destroying giant skeletons and bones that they didn't like.
Absolutely.
You know, I mean, that's a classic example, because all over the world, you know, from America to Europe to the Far East, there have been skeletons found for hundreds of years that are simply disproportionate to modern humans.
Mm-hmm.
People who are 9 foot, 10 foot or taller.
Mm-hmm.
You know, and a lot of things that were found in America in the sort of 19th century were taken to the Smithsonian and they simply destroyed them rather than actually admitting that they exist.
And how many do you think ended up in collections, let's say throughout the UK or Europe, much like the whole Egyptian revolution in the 1800s when everything made their way here, like King Ramses I, Niagara Falls Museum of Oddities of all places?
I know.
I mean, I think certainly over in South America, there are quite a lot of, whether they're privately owned or in little tiny municipal museums, I think that part of the world, there are certainly more examples that you could see. I mean, there are pieces in Sicily and Sardinia that I think have been recovered at the beginning of this century that still exist. Now, whether they're on public display or not, I don't know. But I mean, without any question, it's not just one or two. There's been hundreds, maybe even thousands of these things found.
Right.
And science and academia just doesn't want to address it because it just doesn't tick the boxes that they want it to tick. And when you look at the sort of distribution of artifacts around the world, in one of the closed off portions of the Grand Canyon that's now a military zone, well, there were ancient Egyptian artifacts found in the Grand Canyon. There's been ancient Egyptian artifacts found in caves in the Pyrenees. Well, how did they get there? You know, it's a question nobody wants to answer. When you go back to Egypt, sort of relatively fresh research that's going on almost as we speak, they found cocaine residue in an awful lot of the mummified bodies. Well, cocaine wasn't known in the African continent in those days. So how on earth was a movement of a South American substance? Well, what was it doing thousands of miles away? You know, it's all of these things that it just seems there's a mental block that if something doesn't tick the remit, we don't want to talk about it and we'll try and make it go away.
Of course.
And I mean, that's sort of where I'm at on a couple of things that I'm involved with, that it's, well, okay, we've got some things here that simply shouldn't exist. They shouldn't have been found where they were found. And the dating of them is thousands and thousands of years before they should actually exist at all.
Well, there are some things that have been found that are almost like 1 million years old.
Yeah.
Over 1 million years old.
Definitely.
It's like, so, go ahead. Sorry, Amelia.
Well, I just wanted to ask a question to go back. Thank you, Michelle. Hamilton, do you believe what was found on Sardinia? First of all, it's a two-part question.
There's been quite a number of giant skeletons found in that part of the world. I couldn't tell you the exact locations without going back into it, but it seems quite a concentrated area
giants.
For giants. Yeah,
I'm curious because I'd be curious to see the DNA now, because Sardinia is one of the highest populations in the world of centenarians.
That's right. Yeah, healthy lifestyle.
I'm wondering. Well, they live the same lifestyle as off the coast from them as Italy, so it's just peculiar. I wonder if it's got something to do with the genetic, the genealogy going back and back and back, and if they're a part of that, and that's why they have something that the rest of Italy doesn't. They eat the same. They're drinking from the same waters. I don't know.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, you can also say the same. An awful lot of people with rhesus negative blood have got an extra vertebrae. Why is that?
I've never had a scan on my back, so I don't know.
Extraterrestrial.
Yeah,
oh, come on.
Yeah, not kidding. No.
You know,
I've even met positive blood type people who were abductees who had an extra vertebrae.
I don't think I do. I've never been told. So,
Pass, I don't know, but it just seems to be a fact that amongst the rhesus negative community, if that's the right word, there is a disproportionate number that have an extra vertebrae. So, same question, why is that? We don't know.
No, the theory is extraterrestrial intervention, hybridization somewhere along the line. I mean, you know, they don't get sick the same. You know, some are very sickly and some nothing, like not at all. It's believed that they even have an immunity to HIV when they did. It was only a testing of about 300 people, so it wasn't like it was a major test. But they showed that, you know, there was an immunity to HIV itself. So possibly AIDS and like, well.
I mean, you would have thought with such unique characteristics, an awful lot more time and money would be thrown into investigating things like this, because you might actually get some cures or some immunities by investigating things like that. But it's almost like a blank. They just don't want to know.
No, well, that or they falls
know
into the conspiracy.
Or they do know and they don't want to tell because
I pretend it doesn't exist.
I did have surgery where I needed a blood transfusion during the time of the HIV, where in Toronto there was all these tainted blood donations, and I had to go through testing, and I came up constantly negative. And I was petrified because I was only 19. I was petrified, you know, but I remember that. I remember when that happened in Toronto, and it was a huge, tons of tainted in the blood bank because they weren't aware of
the tainting.
No, they weren't really aware of AIDS so much either, you know, so.
I don't know. It's just this amazing world that we live in. But I agree with you when it comes to academia. I don't believe that, you know, I mean, I'm thinking a lot of us are of the same mind that there are, you know, some areas of religion that are more about control, especially I think as we move on, you know, history shows it with war and such, you know, and great loss of life. And I think how many battles are waged in the name of religion, you know, it's crazy, you know, forever throughout centuries.
It'll go on forever. It'll never stop.
No, exactly. So I think if it comes down to the fact that, you know, this is what the good book says, and the New Testament says something different. But again, with that being said, now when you're finding these out of place artifacts, now you're like going, well, wait a minute, this isn't even possible because this is what we have been taught. And let's face it, we're either dealing with ancient civilizations that were here way before us, possibly even extraterrestrials inhabiting the planet from, you know, whatever, million plus years before us. You know, the ancient Sumerian kings have a list going back 450,000 years ago. And that, or we're dealing with time travel.
Yeah, we just simply don't know. I mean, you go to the Babylonian empires, the Assyrians, the Sasanians, you know, there's remarkable carvings there that seem to show people who are double the height of normal people. You know, if you've seen those, there's characters holding lions as though they were little kittens. And you can scale them up because the carvings also incorporate palm trees and amphoras that you know the size of.
And dinosaurs.
Dinosaurs in various places. Yeah.
And cave walls.
Millions of years out of,
Like what? How far back did they go?
I wonder if they're still around and we don't know it. We don't really know how far. No, but with the dinosaurs, we really don't know. We only know what scientists tell us about, you know, the huge freeze and that. And we don't really know if any survived or if they're living in these vast forests that they're so thick we can't even get through them. We don't know.
Let's get back to the theory of portals. Let's use Loch Ness. for instance. Everybody, how many sightings? And even now, even to this day, I think the last sighting was just like last month or something, that they see something. Not everybody's crazy. Not everybody is just a case of mistaken identity. You know, is there something slipping in and out of a dimension or portal or multiverse or something, and then it just slips back out and they can never find it? Because let's face it, you would think that they would be able to find it. That in itself to me is an out of place anomaly.
You
know,
again, if you talk to sort of Native Americans or look at Native American legends, all things like the Wendigos and the shapeshifters and all of those sorts of things.
Yes.
Well, you know, there have been so many sightings of things that are inexplicable by, you know, sensible people, park rangers and police officers, that it's very hard to just dismiss it all as fantasy when there's so many thousands of things there. But again, it always seems to be, oh, no, it can't be real, no, ridiculous, not even worth investigating properly. And the same with the, what do they call them, the cryptozoologists, the number of odd creatures that are supposedly inhabiting woods. I mean, I was reading up something about disappearances in Canadian woods fairly recently, and sightings of weird animals and half dog men, half werewolves, or and, you know, and you look at the maps right across North America and Canada, these aren't isolated one or two things.
No.
Well, where are they coming from, or what are they? It can't be a kind of mass hysteria because it's been going on again for hundreds of years. So without any question, the authorities certainly know more about that than we're being told. Because when you look at the instances where the National Guard have been called into forests or they've brought in special forces, well, why? What are they doing if there's nothing there that's causing concern or nothing worth following up? What's it all about? You know,
I agree. I agree. I think it's a matter of, you know, people. Once upon a time, you could hide things, you know, but now everybody's got one of these. And you like my screensaver?
I didn't know you just moved it on.
I just moved it. Hold on. Oh,
I'm not used to holding the phone. Is so damn big. I'm not used to holding it.
What's that?
I can't see.
Oh, okay, I recognize that. Yeah,
right. It's a chalice.
Excellent.
Oh,
I love it. It's a beautiful piece. I love it. I love looking at it. It's just whimsical in a way. So
it's her screensaver.
It is.
So, you know.
Yeah.
Bit disappointed it wasn't a picture of me, but yeah, second best. You go with the
I'll put you on mine. Okay.
Perfect. Okay.
I'll put you on mine because
do the Price is Right thing.
Mine just has a puppy. Has a puppy. That's all. He's just my baby who's sleeping at my feet. Not interesting.
No.
So let's get back to
out of place objects and artifacts.
What you were saying, like
well, I mean, when you're looking in the time frame of things, if you just take Egypt as an example, because that's what everybody knows what a pyramid is.
Yes.
Well, inside a pyramid, it's absolutely pitch black. You cannot see a thing, absolutely nothing whatsoever. And it was like that when it was built. Well, the insides of the pyramids are painted in the most beautiful, vivid colors and intricate patterns and hieroglyphics. Well, how was that accomplished without any light? Because they built it, then they painted it. You know, I think there's a school that said, well, they were using candles or they were using oil lamps, which were certainly around at the time. But, well, in any of these temples or pyramids, there isn't a single scrap of smoke residue or lamp or soot residue.
I agree.
Absolutely nothing anywhere. So are people open to the idea that they had other forms of illuminatory devices or what? We don't know.
They wrote about it in the hieroglyphs.
Yeah, they wrote about it, but there seems to be a sort of blank that, oh, no, that's a non-starter. It must have been done with candles. Of course it was. They didn't have anything. Brilliant. That's in Tomar. I remember that being taken.
My husband's going to love this.
Fantastic.
Just tell him it's all about like, the hat.
So who's the
it's
new
all
guy?
About the hat.
He would know. He would know. And the accent. He'd be like, okay, who's your new boyfriend?
Excellent. Oh, dear.
Right. So, yeah, they do write about it. You look at hieroglyphs where they've got this giant battery or light bulb, rather.
Yeah,
right?
Something that we don't know what it is. And the same when on the outside of quite a number of the pyramids, there are a lot of stones with cut marks in them and drill marks in them. Clearly, when they've been examined by modern methods, the drilling is a core drill, the same as we would drill today. And when you look at it, the rotary marks on the stone, it's very clearly a revolving cutting tool. But what was it? Because the metals that were available at the time that we know, the copper and the bronze, well, that isn't going to cut granite and material. And again, it's the same sort of thing. Well, what actually is this technology? And the same thing in South America, it's the pyramids in China. You know, there are these technologies all over the world, and nobody actually seems to come up with an answer or make any serious attempt to explain, well, it's difficult enough to replicate that sort of cutting 2,000 years later using the science we've got. So, well, very clearly these people, either our time scale is very wrong or our knowledge of the technologies they had are completely wrong. And every now and again, you know, artifacts do come up that throw perhaps light onto this, or, you know, want to allow people to sort of take a look as to, well, maybe we've actually been completely wrong on our dating or our knowledge of these people, or the sort of cross-fertilization of cultures across the world at the time. Because it would seem a remarkable coincidence that simultaneously, right across the world, completely independent cultures suddenly develop exactly the same technologies at the same time. It just seems too far-fetched. And I mean, that's where I am with the sort of little box of artifacts that I was given a while back, that it's a complete sort of, well, why does that exist? Well, it can't exist. It makes no sense whatsoever. And the academics aren't going to like it. So kind of that's where we are on today's episode. And it's really a shameless plug, because we now need to find an imaginative TV producer to sort of come on board with us, take a look. Because, again, we can put the stuff on the table. We can tell you where it's from. Well, right, what are we going to do with this? It's time that it actually comes out, and let's have a proper talk about it. And we're quite happy to stand here and front it up and say, yeah, here it is. We've got it in our hands. We haven't made it up. What are you going to do about it?
Well, what I like about it, yeah, and what I like about it is, you know, they're starting to find things. It's not out of the norm now. It's more acceptable. So you might just have someone interested in examining the pieces, because a lot of these pieces have ended up in museums, which you don't have a whole lot of access to, you know, for I won't say for let's say a mainstream academics can examine them. But you have a collection that you're like, no, you know what? You have an idea, much like the Tomar Hoard, and say, look, this is open for interpretation. We're learning too. Yeah. We have it. We're learning. Here's something else that we have that we're learning about or want to learn about. But there are more and more discoveries of these anomalies coming up. I mean, they're just surfacing everywhere. And now with LiDAR, people are just going over these old temples, even like in South America or in Egypt. They're like, oh, look, there's a city here. There's a temple here. There's a pyramid here. And they're going in, they're excavating, and they're finding things that they're going, what the hell is this? This doesn't fit. Yeah. This doesn't make sense.
Yeah.
So, you know, I think now is the time, because people are ready to understand. People are ready to know the truth. The planet is not 5,000 years old. Planet's not 30,000 years old. Cultures, this is what, like our third or fifth round at civilization? Like we're...
Possibly, yeah.
So this left behind from ancient civilizations, is it from the future? Like what is it? Sorry, Amelia.
No, I'm scratching.
Oh.
You thought I was scratching my shoulder. She thought I was smart. Yeah,
I'm like, hey, what?
Like, oh my God, yeah.
Hand signals aren't working for us today.
Tickling my shoulder because I have the fan on, and I'm like, really? This is driving me crazy because I'm not used to being here in the middle of the day. But
That's a bit like when we were out filming the Relics series. Suddenly the camera would go on to me. It's like, what? Me? Oh, this will talk to me. Okay. I'm sorry, I was miles away. I was looking at
what now?
Sadly, the camera's always on you during the radio show. It's just a matter of signaling, because we do signal each other not to interrupt each other. Yeah.
When you're a fidget bug, it's hard because
we're both. Yeah, I'm extremely fidgety, but yeah.
So, I mean, going back on what we've actually got, I mean, probably one of the more famous things that was made to disappear was the Baghdad battery.
Yes.
Yeah.
It was the thing that was found somewhere, Iran, Iraq, that sort of area. Can't remember when, 100 or so years ago, was it something like that? Give or take a bit. And I mean, the general theory, because nobody ever proved what it was, that it was some form of electrical cell or electric generator from the ancient world. Now, whether they meant it was 1,000 years old or it was 3,000 years old, I don't think anybody ever really narrowed it down. But it seemed to be some sort of composite materials that if you reassembled them today, it was a means of generating electricity. Now, whether that could have been for light, the other theory was it was for some form of silver or gold plating, which again, you would use that sort of current. But whatever the actual object was, it was very clearly some sort of modern type electrical device that had been constructed several thousand years ago. It seemed to have been sidelined in history because, again, it's one of those things that I don't think anybody really wanted to commit to because it just doesn't fit. You can't have electricity 2,000-3,000 years ago. And then conveniently, it was made to disappear out of the National Museum of Iraq and has never been seen again, and nobody's even bothered to look for it, despite the fact that they've been looking for everything else out of the museum since the sort of the Gulf War. That particular artifact, nobody seems to want to put 2 minutes worth of effort into finding it, so it probably suits them that it's been made to disappear.
How do they date them?
I think the dating of that was probably based on where it was found and the sort of whatever the other evidence of either pottery or the city. I don't know that much about it.
Can you carbon test, I guess? Things like stone or dirt or things like that.
You can do a carbon test on a lot of materials, but the faith of carbon dating isn't anywhere near as good as it should be. I mean, I've seen a set of test results for a carbon dated piece that's 50,000 years out. I mean, it's nonsense.
Yeah, so that's
wow.
It's very hit and miss, shall we say, on carbon dating.
Right.
But I think the initial dating of it when it was first found was probably based on the excavations and their known date of wherever the town was that it was found, I think. But, you know, that doesn't necessarily date the object. You know, an object can be found and it could already be in the soil 1,000 years before somebody builds a town on top of it. There's no right or wrong, particularly with something like that, which is a unique item because nobody's ever seen one before. So how do you actually date something that nobody's ever seen before? You know,
do we know how far they dug to find that?
Off the top of my head, Amelia, no, I don't. I mean, it's a whole new subject to me. I've got more than enough to keep me amused for the rest of my life before I start going into something like this. But I mean, how all this got dropped on me, a very good friend of mine who I've known for a long time, he was a teacher, then he quit and became an archaeologist and got very disillusioned with it and just started doing his own thing. Sort of 25 years ago, he was doing some diving because he's a scuba diver as well. And diving off the coast, I mean, I can't tell you where it is, but I mean, it's Western Europe. Diving offshore, looking for sort of interesting sites or shipwrecks, he spotted what he thought were some buildings underwater. Now, bearing in mind, you're probably a mile offshore and you're in bad visibility, but it interested him enough that over a sort of 5-6 year period, he really did a lot of dives on the site. And he ended up getting himself one of these little radar scanners that you tow behind your boat, a bit like fishermen use, I think, when you're looking for shoals of fish. And ended up sort of doing a kind of map of the whole site, not just one site. There were several little sub-sites off it. And very, very clearly, you can see on it deliberate structures. And I mean, it's not just one or two houses. It's a proper sized town. I mean, there are demarcations of what are streets and pavements, different size, what are obviously houses, and others which are more than likely commercial buildings. I mean, it's a complete lost town, the main site of it.
Yeah.
Right.
And he did some diving on it and pulled some artifacts off. Not that much, but things that you could identify. He pulled some roof tiles off the floor, which clearly they were part of the original structures. But they didn't seem to match anything that had ever been found within the sort of locality ashore or anywhere else. They weren't Roman tiles, they weren't medieval. The same on some bits of stonework and some carvings that he took photos of. But the style of it just didn't make any sense at all for any other form of culture that was known to be inhabiting the area. And I mean, it's an area where they'd had Celtics, they'd had Romans before that, you know, and it had gone through the medieval period. So it's an area that's very well researched, and they can pretty much date quite accurately who was doing what and where. Now, over quite a period of time, he put a lot of effort into this. And at that time, commercial satellites, you could pay the US government you put in a set of coordinates, and the spy satellite would actually take a photograph of the coordinates that you put in. And he had a whole load of very, very accurate coordinates that he paid all himself, and ended up with maybe 20 or 30 spy satellite photos of various of these underwater locations. And from space, with the right equipment, you can see it. I mean, it's perfectly clear. I mean, the depths are between, I think it's something like 30 feet and 90 feet, all of these different structures.
Yeah.
Wow.
But when you compare the satellite photographs to the sort of the actual scans that he'd done himself, I mean, they're absolutely exactly the same. There's no argument. This is very clearly unknown towns, cities, villages, whatever you want to call them. And the sort of logic of why they're there is the fact that coastlines change over time, and, you know, things that used to be on land are now underwater, and vice versa. So perfectly sensible, because there are other examples in the area of how rivers and coastlines have changed. So clearly over a multi-thousand-year period, the coastline has changed, and now these cities are underground. But where it starts to get interesting, bearing in mind he's a very well-educated archaeologist, is that he could make no sense at all out of some of the things that he was pulling off the seabed, because they seemed totally out of place in terms of what the materials were and what the actual artifacts themselves were made out of, because they were materials that he was struggling to apply to, you know, he couldn't even identify some of them.
Right.
And I mean, he hadn't really told anybody about this because he assumed that he would be seen as a crackpot. And no, you're an idiot. What are you doing? Go away. Mm-hmm. So, the whole thing had been done and funded by himself for no reason other than his own academic interest in doing it, because to him it was an absolutely fascinating thing, because like you and I, it's interesting and it makes no sense. Yeah, all of it is going well. He's fitting it in between other jobs until one day he's sitting at home and gets a knock on the door and finds there's 2 military vehicles parked outside his house.
Black car?
Military vehicles.
Military vehicles. Wow.
The first military vehicle was full of uniformed and armed troopers, led by obviously somebody official in a peaked cap. The second military vehicle had got ununiformed people in. And basically they marched in the house, told him that we know exactly what you're doing. We know what we've been doing. You shouldn't be doing it and you're going to desist. Which, that put the frighteners
That's harsh.
That just put a ton of value on everything he found.
Oh, yeah.
Well, yes, but they then rifled his house and took away every single thing they could find that they believed that he'd actually had off the site. And that's it. The whole stuff disappeared. They put enough of the frighteners on him that it was made very, very clear. You go diving on that site again and you ain't coming back, mate. Simple as that.
So that sure makes you wonder, because you're not looking at just an archaeological site here, because those are happening all over the world.
Yeah. Now, bear in mind, this is sort of 20 years ago, where you hadn't got as much internet and it was much easier to put the frighteners on people.
Right.
And I mean, fairly clearly they knew he hadn't spread the information around, or, if they put the frighteners on him, that's the end of it.
Mm-hmm.
So there goes my offer to go diving with him next time.
Well, that's where he can't dive anymore because he's got a heart condition. He can't go below 15 feet.
I'll go.
Yes.
I'll go for him. Yeah. I'm a very honest person. I'm just curious.
Yeah. Same here,
Yeah.
But amongst the things that he had taken off the site was an example of a Baghdad battery, which, assuming it was the real thing, it would be the first one that actually has ever been found in Western Europe. It was taken away. He doesn't know who exactly they were, where it went. It was simply taken away because it was sat on his desk. Now, I've got a photograph of it. So let me see if I can find it.
Okay.
Well, I'm sure he had it on his desk because he didn't think anyone would take it because anyone would know what it was.
Yeah. Now, that, whether or not you can see it.
Yeah, we can see it.
Yeah, if you can see that.
Wow.
That was the battery that the Men in Black confiscated 20 or so years ago.
Wow.
Now,
Men in Black.
Yeah. I mean, you can't call them anything else, really. Mm-hmm. It's the spooks or whatever you want to call them. But, I mean, it put sufficient frighteners on him that, that was it. He didn't go back to the site. He shut up. And as far as he was concerned, it was never discussed. It's a guy I've known quite a long time, and he'd never mentioned it to me at all. But about sort of 2 years ago, I mean, we've done an awful lot of business and things, and he just pulled a box out and just said, look, you've got a bad attitude. You don't seem to care. I'm going to tell you a story and give you a box, and then this becomes your problem.
So now you just needed ours and the rest of the world listening.
Brilliant. Hit me with it. So he then tells me the story and gave me the file of all of the photographs of all of the sonar scans. But more interestingly, he gave me all his maps and charts with the actual specific to within a square inch location of degree. I can't even navigate, but whatever it is that you need to navigate yourself onto these sites.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
But there was also a box of artifacts that weren't at his house when the Men in Black arrived. They were actually at somewhere else, so they'd missed them. So he'd had them sort of stashed away without showing them to anybody for 20 years, which, I mean, I've just got them down here, which This to me is the most interesting, because that is what appears to be a second Baghdad battery. You can see still got the incrustations on little barnacle things where it's come off.
It does, yes.
But the thing that is absolutely fascinating about it, that completely throws everybody, and there are 3 or 4 other artifacts, it's made of graphite. Now, graphite wasn't really known about until the 17th century, when they started using it in the production of cannonballs in England. And it was a completely useless material. And it wasn't really until the 19th century that graphite started to actually have a use for anything. So that then throws up the question, what on...
It's okay. Is that? It's my... Yeah, that's it. They're calling.
Yeah. No. So firstly, it throws up the question, the area where these pieces were found and where this sort of sub-ocean town village is, well, to start with, it's something like 3,000 or 4,000 miles away from the nearest source of graphite. There is no graphite whatsoever within the region where this stuff was found. And secondly, well, whatever civilization was that built this town that was making these things clearly knew what graphite was, and they must have obtained it from somewhere. So it's showing that, well, somewhere down the line, a completely unknown civilization, certainly pre-Roman, was using and making materials that didn't actually exist for maybe 4,000 or 5,000 years into the future.
Wow.
So explain that one.
Time travel.
I don't know. I have no answers. I'm
sticking with that. No,
I'm sitting with a box of artifacts. I mean, one of the other things.
Every now and then we lose them.
Going back.
Where we go?
What is that?
Yeah, there we go. Oh,
when you look at that,
keep it right there.
That's a little man-made vessel.
Yes.
Again,
yes.
It's been made out of a solid lump of graphite.
Again, but graphite.
If you look at cultures in the ancient world, that is identical in shape to a Celtic woad grinder or a Roman or Egyptian curved vessel for makeup or for sort of grinding any form of coal. So does that mean the purpose of this is exactly the same as what the Celts and the Romans and Egyptians were using a vessel this shape for? Or is it for something else? Because graphite is quite soft. If you're using that for grinding or mashing something up, graphite itself, whatever it is you're doing, is going to work the graphite into whatever you're working. So if it was makeup, you just end up with a grey face like using a pencil. Right. So it's clearly a man-made vessel for using for something.
They could have used it for eyeliner. I mean, they were notorious for the black lines.
Maybe, possibly.
Because then it would make sense to use graphite, because you're crushing coal and it's okay if it has gray or berries for their lips. If it's used for makeup for women, it makes total sense. And then adding water to it would make it indent even more, right? You're shaping it.
So it's the graphite that makes it that much more unusual.
Well, graphite at that period in time didn't exist anywhere in the world. It was thousands and thousands of years before graphite was even discovered. Then you've got that piece, which is a worked piece, smooth on one side. Then when you flip it over, you can just about see you've got like weird, like almost metallic inclusions fused into it that, to me, it looks like a copper or a bronze type material because there's a green patina to it. But again, I have no idea how you would fuse copper into graphite, or absolutely no idea at all. Zero.
Maybe they had it on a base of copper,
Or could the water have caused some sort of erosion?
Or they could have mixed it with the metals. Yeah. I wonder, because you think of royalty, there was always metals within their homes, right? You had gold, or depending on what part of the world gold was valued the most. I wonder if, they had melted something and then forged it together.
Perhaps if
to
they
make it
did,
pretty kind of thing,
If they did, what were they actually doing with it? Because I mean, it's far too heavy to be any form of piece of jewelry or adornment. I mean, I don't know what that weighs, but I mean, you certainly wouldn't ever wear something.
No, I mean, just as a base for some royal, if it's for makeup, you think about it, women love things that shine. It's not going to be any different before. And the metals would be of value and show even more value to the family. I wouldn't be surprised if there was a base made for it and it just came apart over time.
Possibly, but what's the culture that's doing it?
That I have no idea. That's your investigation.
I mean,
yeah, well,
they've been finding cultures going back now between anywhere from 15 to 30,000 years. Like there's evidence of these structures surfacing or being found, right? Like all over the world, I mean, that's Atlantean times, older, Lemuria.
Well, yeah, I mean, if you go back through cultures that you can positively ascribe materials to, it's very easy to identify something that's Celtic. Before that, or around the same period, you've got Romano-Celtic. Then later you've got Roman. Go back a bit earlier, you've got the cultures of Greece. And really before that, you're looking at the Phoenicians and the people in the Middle East. The cultures that were actually happening in Western Europe at that time, we were so far behind the Middle East. We hadn't really got anything. People were Pagans. The Assyrians, Sasanians, they were building cities while we were still living in caves in Western Europe.
Right.
So if these pieces are Western European and they predate all of the Middle Eastern cultures, well, who the hell was it? I don't know. I genuinely have no idea at all. Then this, which again looks like nothing, but it's a little piece of material, and you can't really see the color in this light.
There, we can see it there if you leave it right there.
It's almost like it looks like concrete or clay, or it could be some weird stone, but it's a bright purple color. And then when you turn it round, again, there's a complete fused on layer, which you can probably see it there.
Yes.
That looks like a fused on, again, a copper or some sort of metal. I mean, I can only assume this must
be a conductor.
Part of a broken vessel or part of a broken something else. But totally unable to identify what the metal is, what the clay is, have absolutely no idea. It doesn't match up with anything that anybody's been able to find anywhere. So what is it? Is that some other form of lost technology or material? Honestly,
metal conducts, right? Copper's a conductor. They're metal. So it's like, is that what they were, achieving or trying to achieve with it, especially with the whole Baghdad battery thing?
Yeah, well, I mean, the one piece, we can't think of anything else it can possibly be other than some form of battery component. And it's the second one that was found on exactly the same site. So it can't be some sort of freaky thing. It's a deliberately manufactured object for a purpose.
Right.
It's not a decorative thing. It's like, genuinely, I no idea. I mean, the guy who found the stuff, nothing. I mean, it's just kind of head scratching for him. But whoever it was that knocked on his door 20 years ago certainly didn't want him to have it and didn't want it to be broadcast. So they put the frighteners on him. And what's also very interesting, bear in mind I've got the coordinates for all of these various sites along the coast. A bit like, I mean, you can still get satellite imagery photographed today if you've got the money to pay for it. But, certain areas of the world, like Area 51 and parts of Antarctica, you're not... Yeah, forget it. Doesn't happen. You can't do it.
It's not happening.
Yeah.
No.
Well,
Antarctica is a new Area 51.
Wow, right? It's just coming up a lot in the news of late.
It is. You need a lot of clearance to get anywhere near it now.
Well, as an interesting experiment, somebody that wasn't traceable approached one of the satellite companies with a random set of coordinates that we've already got photographs of to see if we could get them photographed now.
Wow.
Blacklisted. Nope. Can't do it.
Wow.
So for whatever reason, these things that we have satellite photographs of taken 20 years ago, you can now no longer obtain the same photographs of because it's in the restricted.
Yeah. So my guess is that your friend actually made the discovery, and by going and having satellite imagery done, they're like, "Holy crap! What's this?"
Possibly.
This is it might have done
or oh no, somebody found it.
Maybe.
Yeah. Could go either way with that one.
If that's the case, I mean, there is a lot of evidence out there on, cave paintings, hieroglyphs, sculptures, statuettes, all kinds of things are being found. And there is a huge extraterrestrial presence. And a lot of ancient cultures coexisted really well with them. If you go back into Egypt, the KGB, I think it was in the 80s, got access to a tomb in Egypt, and the pharaoh was like a 7-foot tall gray, right? So let's just hypothetically say that this was all a thing. I would think that the ETs would have been here much longer than civilization. I mean, we're just a civilization of the time, just like the Incans and the Mayans were the civilization of the time in that part of the world. These beings could have been there, predated all of that. Would they have known by going further down into the earth to get graphite or from wherever, and maybe coexisted with another civilization who built your city, Yeah,
this is the complete unknown. I know no more about it than you do. I mean, I'm sitting with these things on my desk. They exist. I know what graphite is. People who understand technology have looked at them and said that's pure graphite.
Right.
We've drawn on the maps lines as to, well, where was graphite found first?
Right.
Where was graphite mined commercially when it started to have an actual value in the 19th century? And it doesn't matter how you look at the maps, it's thousands and thousands of miles away from where these pieces were actually found.
And
the same
this is dated at what, roughly, do you think?
I couldn't even begin to guess. I mean, the area where this stuff was found. Now, bear in mind, it was found roughly a mile offshore, so the topographics have changed.
Right.
But I mean, within what is now the coastal region where it was found, you've got evidence of Roman and Celtic settlements, but nothing really before that, because you're looking at Neolithic, Chalcolithic period. They were living in caves. So there isn't really a third option that you can even throw in the air as a guess, because it just...
Okay, what about ancient Sumerians? A whole Anunnaki thing. The ancient Sumerian kings that go back 450,000 years would I mean, there are tablets that prove this, that show this. Could it have come from... Because let's face it, the Romans, just the Romans alone, maybe they swept their way across everywhere. They made their way into the UK and gave it their dangest. I mean, they were there for 300 years?
Yeah. I mean, this is what now needs somebody to come on board and do a proper full-on documentary. I've got the exact locations. I assume they're diveable today. I haven't tried, but I mean... the actual structures are still going to be there.
Yes.
I don't know where we go with it, but I mean, it's an absolutely fascinating story, and it's not a wild goose chase, because, well, the items are sitting next to me. They can be put up for scientific analysis, and genuinely, I can't offer any insight on it at all. I've just kind of got dumped with it because of my bad attitude towards academics and science. It's right.
I love it, though.
You're going to take this over and you're going to deal with it.
But it's illogical. I sent you my collection going, hey, go. I don't want that. I don't want to be arrested. It's yours now.
Yeah. I hear military vehicles.
where we were talking before about in Egypt, about the technologies, the drilling of very hard materials with no tools. This is also off the same site. Now, this is a lump of extremely hard material.
Right.
I don't know what it is. It could be a granite, but again, exactly as it's come off the ocean floor, still with all your barnacles on, but it's got holes drilled in it. And I mean, this is simply, again, an example of technology that just did not exist at these points in history. And it looks like they've been drilled to get the actual cores out. So
have you put your little battery in there? Does it fit?
No, the battery is quite a lot larger when you look at the relevant sizes. No.
Wow, okay.
I mean, it looks like, to my eye, that the piece of stone isn't a constructional material. It looks like the stone has been drilled to extract a solid little tube of whatever this very hard stone is. And I can only imagine it. You would use it as some form of roller or perhaps some means of, I don't know, moving something heavy around on a very hard roller. I've no idea. But the actual, it's come off the same site. Well, there you go. Is exactly the same technology that we've seen in Egypt.
Yes.
Thousands and thousands of years in completely the wrong direction. So you explain it to me. I don't know.
It goes back to the whole ancient Sumerian Anunnaki thing, because they were they believed they were the forefathers of the Egyptian civilization, So I don't know. It's like, and you can't test that stuff.
Well, I don't know. I mean, I don't know what scientific tests you could actually do on this stuff accurate. To date it. It's totally out of my sphere. You can't carbon date stone. I know that.
No.
But I mean, the starting point would actually be to go to the site itself and either dive on it or try and look at it, if you're allowed to. I mean, what on earth would happen if you try to, as a film TV crew, turn around and say, "Oh, can we go diving here?" to the appropriate government that runs it? I mean, you might find yourself disappearing. I mean, God only knows. You might have to go do
but you could also play stupid, because now people have drones.
Not after you just told us on the show.
Over sites.
Well spotted there, Amelia. Well spotted.
I had a drone, and the drone saw this town.
Yeah.
And I want to dive it.
You kind of have to be a tourist, and it can't be anybody who's been on the screen, which is really pissing me off, because I wanted to dive. But
but it's a theory.
No,
I don't know. I mean, I've no idea if the area is combed by military or commercial boats today. I mean, I've deliberately kept away from it so as not to draw any attention to either me or anybody else on the site.
I would imagine they're just watching it via satellite, because they don't want to draw attention to it either by floating over it. I would love to, as a medium, be able to hold that piece to read the energy.
Yeah,
it'd be interesting to work with someone nearby and who can do that type of reading and ask them to tell you what they feel without telling them any information.
Yeah, I mean, this is the thing. I mean, all of these, because it's such a completely weird set of objects, I don't think you would necessarily have to do the normal archaeological route. I think you would have quite a bit of leeway for, well, let's go and talk to some mediums or some remote viewers, or let's look at it another way. Because if you show these pieces to what any conventional archaeologists, they're not actually going to be able to tell you any more about it than we can ourselves, because there's nothing to cross-reference against it, because it shouldn't exist.
They have limited education as well.
Yeah.
That's
experience.
All they're going to be able to do is validate the fact that, no, if it's graphite, no, you're right. You can just do basic research to figure out it wasn't a thing. And beyond that.
Oh my gosh, if I lived close by, I'd put my hands on that.
Definitely.
Yeah, I would love to.
We should almost talk to Freddie Silva. When he wrote his books on the missing lands, he's addressed many cultures that go back anywhere from 15 to 30,000 years in different areas of the world.
You should talk to him.
It's fascinating read. It's just like, because then you're like, okay, there was this culture in this area at this time, this culture in this area at this time. I would pick his brain or get the book. It's just fabulous.
Maybe you should make that connection.
I try to sort of speak
dun, dun, dun. Yeah, dun, dun, dun. Because Freddie does a lot of shows. So maybe you should make that. Yeah. But I mean, like television-wise, he travels the world.
Well, I mean, when I was doing the Templar thing before we actually really started working with Tim Wallace Murphy, I did actually track Freddie down, and I got a home phone number for him in the States and rang him up. And the initial was, "How do you get my phone number?" Which was like, well, it's not that difficult, mate. Honestly, if you know how to get phone numbers.
It really isn't.
Yeah. Sort of explained what we were doing, said I'd read his book on Portugal and found it fascinating. This is what we've got. And it was almost as though he didn't want to talk.
Maybe he wanted to make sure you are who you say you are, because he probably gets approached a lot.
I really don't know. I mean, I put him in touch with Tim Wallace Murphy, and he had several discussions with Tim. Seemed more than happy to talk to him, but to actually, I mean, I know Freddie's been over to England numerous times on his guided tours, and I did actually think, well, when I know he's over in England, should I get in touch? And then I just thought, well, you know what, mate, you had a chance. You couldn't be bothered to return any communication to me, so yeah, you're not the right person. I don't need a dose of that.
But, sometimes it is about finding the right person. Maybe it's someone else who's supposed to bring you there, as wonderful and knowledgeable as he is. Maybe he's not the right fit. That's all. And it's okay.
No, I mean, this is totally out of my sphere. I mean, I know absolutely nothing about it. I know a little bit about the Anunnaki theory, a little bit about the Atlantis theory and all the rest of it. Right. But my knowledge is so minimal. I certainly couldn't stand there and actually pontificate on what it is. All I can do is more or less, well, this is what I've got. This is the story. I can take you to the exact spot where it was found. What are you going to do with it? I don't know. I can't.
There's a whole missing continent that's underwater right now that they've discovered. And that continent sits like right smack in the middle of everything,
connects it all. Yeah. It would have connected it all, right? From east to west.
It would have.
Yeah.
Maybe. And I mean, unless you go,
maybe that's how they travel
and have access to go down that far. They've just recently shown this missing continent.
I saw that.
Maybe that's part of your answer as well.
It could very well be. Yeah. I mean, honestly, I'm completely in the dark on it.
Yeah.
I think we could do an absolutely fascinating show or series of shows on it, because you've genuinely got the artifacts in your hands. You can do something with it. This isn't a sort of wild goose chase of
it's right there.
Ideas. Well, look, I've got the satellite photos taken by Big Bird, the satellite. I forget the name of the US spy satellite.
Right.
Look, I've got the photographs that the spy satellite took. And if you put the coordinates in now, they won't take it because it's a restricted area. Well, that alone should arouse some
it would, because you can't get it now.
No, I think with the creation of Huawei, you can't get on a lot of sites now.
Yeah. It's completely inaccessible information. Yeah. I think it's a great opportunity. I also, like I said earlier, I like your approach, because it's not like you're coming into this as a collector. And you're like, look, this kind of got dropped on my lap, much like, Tomar didn't. Well, Tomar sort of got dropped on your lap. It amazes me. There's things that end up on your lap.
But careful with that.
I know. But
you just.
But with that being said,
Amelia, that wrong mug. That's not Folger's coffee. Look, your Folger's coffee mug's here. Thank you. That's better. Thank you.
It doesn't hold the amount of coffee that I drink, but it's
all right.
I need a 16-ounce cup. Yeah.
But no, but I like your approach, where it's just like, look, you know what? We don't pretend to know what this is all about. We're still learning. We're open to discussions. Academics aren't interested. They are. They're just not telling you. And tell us your thoughts. Like when you wrote the book, I was just like, I love that approach.
Yeah, we just genuinely don't know. So, I mean, it would be great, but you need the backing of a TV and the power of TV to do something with it.
You do.
And I mean, maybe the time's right, because, the whole ancient aliens thing seems to be doing incredibly well at the moment.
Yes.
Maybe that's what you need to get on, is ancient aliens.
Well, that's the sort of person that we need to get in touch with, or for them to come to us, because it's not a regular kind of history type format that we're doing.
No.
It's a completely off the wall, where perhaps you do need the alien hunters or the Skinwalker Ranch type guys that are open to all of these theories. We don't know anybody like that because it's totally out of our parameter of everything. So, I mean, this is the first throw it open to the world.
I know people, actually.
I was just going to say Michelle has a lot of connections, and we've had a lot of guests on that are frequently on Ancient Aliens. But
I do know I do know of a couple of others we haven't had on because they're almost damn impossible to get on. But I know friends of friends. So let me just poke around with that a little bit. Because that just sort of came and went like, oh, wait.
Yeah. But I mean, it's not kind of being hidden away. This is the first time I've talked about it openly anywhere. So it's a complete first come, first serve. If there is some TV interest out there, come and talk to us. I mean, we're game for it. We've got no fixed ideas on how to do it. It's, well, we've got the items, we've got the information. I was just told, go and deal with this. So having looked at it and satisfied myself as far as I can go with it, I'm stumped. I've got nowhere to go at all now without some help.
What an amazing journey to film.
It would be fantastic.
What an amazing journey to film.
Yeah.
This is all new. And it's happening as they're, wow. Yeah.
It's you know what? It's making a resurgence. I think it's one of those topics where people are fascinated, but they just don't go there because first off, I think we're more in a time now where we are open to either time travel, extraterrestrials, or civilizations that's older than Adam and Eve. Just saying. So people are now educating themselves. And if that's the case, then I think, you almost have to go in and say, wow, let's do something with
Start
this.
again. Start from scratch.
The time is now. Yeah.
But I mean, when you're looking at the sort of artifacts in the Western world, really what's perceived as the first form of art in the Western world is the sort of Neolithic, Paleolithic, Chalcolithic sort of carvings of goddesses, which seem to pop up all over Europe, in the Balkans, in Iberia, in France. Again, very, very similar, bulbous hipped, crude representations, which are obviously female fertility figures. And I mean, they seem to date a lot of those, maybe 8,000 years old. But then there's been a couple come out that they've turned around and said, well, actually, you know what? We think this is 20 to 30,000 years old. There's an example in Germany of like a lion-headed female figure that, I think it's mammoth ivory it's made out of, that was found in one of the caves in Germany in the 1930s.
Right.
They're sort of saying, well, actually, maybe we're 10,000 years out in the dating of the sort of Stone Age era.
Well, that's a possibility. But even the Sphinx, they've determined is 10,000 plus years.
Yeah, which I can throw into the mix, which I didn't tell you I've got, is that when you're...
Of course you didn't. Supposed to let the hosts know what's going on.
So
boring.
Cute. So
boring.
Cute.
Boring.
Yep, that's it, boring.
It wouldn't be fun to have people like me around if it was all scripted. It's spontaneous is why it works.
If we didn't love you, we wouldn't have you on every month.
I'll give it to you. Okay.
I wasn't all that interested in that early form of art because when I first looked at it, I just thought it was very crude and shapeless. But actually, when you look at it and you start taking on board, well, actually, it isn't. It's incredibly stylish, and bearing in mind this is made by people living in a cave banging it with a stone. To manufacture these early representations of goddesses or whatever they are, I mean, it's absolutely fantastic. I mean, it really is. And I started getting interested in the prehistoric stuff.
Right.
And in my usual way, became totally OCD with it.
No, I don't believe it.
I call them the first photographs of time.
I started getting into the Neolithic goddesses, and I don't know how good this is going to come out, because I'm going to show you some things which, again, they'll tell you won't exist.
Okay.
Well, there's a Neolithic goddess, like more or less the same sort of normal Neolithic figure, which they're saying is 8,000 years old.
Wow.
But what's very interesting on here, I don't know if you can see it very well, the figure is actually holding a baby.
Yes,
I see that.
A baby.
Yeah.
Which they will tell you, no representations in art actually of that period were that advanced. Well, there's one.
Yeah, no. It's like the Anunnaki statue of the reptilian goddess holding her baby.
Yeah. Here's another interesting one, which they'll tell you don't exist. There's a double one. There's two figures hugging each other.
Oh, that is beautiful.
Wow.
Again, I mean,
that is gorgeous.
Is that 8,000 years old, or is that 30,000 years old? I don't know.
Because you can't date it.
Yep.
Wow.
And then I'll just show you one more.
Did you try getting Sean Williamson to look at it?
Yeah.
This is the one that they'll definitely tell you can't exist. Now, if you look there, it's a representation of a goddess giving birth with a little baby's head popping out.
Oh, geez, it is. Wow.
Now, again, they will tell you that these things can't possibly exist because cultures of that time weren't able to represent things in the way. They were just shapeless blobs. Absolutely no, they weren't. They were advanced, and there are certain things that exist that clearly show that art was developing at a much, much quicker or different rate to what archaeologists want to actually admit that they were developing at.
I hate when they say, no, that can't exist. How do they know what can exist? And they haven't seen everything. It's like, why are you speaking with such adamancy of nope? It's like, no.
And why would
you
they
need to
hide
be
something
open-minded?
Like that? Why would they hide something like that? I mean, it's.
I don't know. Again, but I mean, if we can get somebody on board, that is prepared to sort of have a broad-minded sort of look over of all these anomalous things. That's only 3 of my Venuses. I've actually got 30 unrecorded Venuses of various sizes and shapes.
That OCD thing, isn't it?
I love Venus.
I don't want 3, I want 40.
Yeah.
I
love Venus.
And I mean, I've got one that is a stone version of the lion-headed one that they found in Germany. Wow. The features are very, very similar, but it's stone, not ivory. And I've got another one that I would say is way, way earlier that's so amorphous that it's hardly visible as a Venus. But when you line it up with all the other Venuses, it's so obvious that, oh my God, that looks like it's thousands of years older than all of the others.
I don't even have Sean look at him, because Sean Williamson has basically said he's studying, because on his show the last time, how structures and pieces were made based on the tools that they would have had of certain times. So he's looking to start doing more.
They're friends. They're friends. So.
Yeah, I mean, I know Sean very well. Sean's been and had a look at some of the Templar stonework.
Yeah,
I can show it to Sean, but
because he's looking at other stuff that's not Templar. It's just stonework on average. I thought it was fascinating.
But I mean, the number of unknown Venuses that actually exist anywhere that are in private hands or even decent museum collections are very, very slim. And they all are pretty much the same sort of form. There's not that much difference in them. But I mean, I've got some pieces that are so utterly different from any others that exist anywhere. It's out of my sphere. I can appreciate them for what they are as wonderful pieces of art. Right. But I couldn't tell you if they're 6 or 30,000 years old. I don't know. It really needs a proper brainstorm. go round and look at all the other existing ones in the various museums and put them side by side and fathom out, well, what the hell's Hamilton actually got here? Because again, it really doesn't make sense.
It's more along the lines of what the hell does Hamilton actually not have?
Yeah, that's a shorter list.
Yeah.
Okay.
Can I take that
Station
moment
ID
to
time.
do
Yeah.
Station ID? You were listening to The Outer Realm with Michelle DeRoche and myself, Amelia Pisano. Tonight
Don't you
we
dare,
have
Hamilton.
the
Don't you dare, Hamilton.
amazing, block that camera, turn that camera off. The amazing Hamilton White with us all the way from England. And this is a pre-recorded show, but Michelle and I are in those chat rooms, so feel free to pop in those questions and comments. We're there with you. We are broadcasting live from the beautiful city of New Orleans in the United States on 105.3 FM radio. We are United Public Radio. We are streaming right now live on UFO Paranormal Radio, International Public Radio, or did I get those backwards? UFO Gods and Extraterrestrials. I always get. Tonight, our intro and our outro and every night of our show is courtesy of the incredible and amazing composer, Dr. Snick, the sonic surgeon, Justin Snicker. You can find his music on Bandcamp, on Amazon. You can find him on Facebook and Instagram. His music is amazing, and he is an award-winning composer. Also, tonight and every night from the beginning of The Outer Realm, we'd like to thank our sponsors. We love you guys. Folgers Coffee. Absolutely love you. And look, see, even Hamilton White's giving you a thumbs up on that one.
Have one.
And then the next show, Hamilton and Carl will have their mugs.
That's right.
Yeah.
That's right.
Carl Cookson is missing from tonight. He's tending to family. And if you can, keep him in your thoughts and prayers. Thank you.
Yeah, we've only got half the Relic crew in, unfortunately. He's just dealing with awkward family things and doing a sterling job of it. So, well, and Carl, hope you listen to this sooner or later and everything's going well.
He will be back.
Yeah, he'll be back, definitely.
He'll both
so,
be back.
I mean, the question is, throw it open now. The sort of people that you know within the sort of alien-y, spaceman, caveman, Anunnaki world.
Right.
You know, if you can get them to watch this, look at the pictures, see what they think. If we can get somebody who wants to talk, we're all ears. You know, we'd love to get involved.
I know a couple of people who send a link to.
Okay.
I will do that because I think it's a really great thing. There are other shows also that tackle this sort of thing.
Okay.
That I can do that. So yeah. I mean
which
just
way?
brainstorm. A lot of places are closed right now until January, though. Yeah, and stuff like that. But
I mean, if this stuff had been dumped on your table and you were told, Michelle, you've got a bad attitude, go and deal with it, where would you start?
At the top.
Okay.
I would go at the freaking top and go, yeah, here it is.
Okay. Oh, good Lord.
Exactly what you're doing. I'm surprised you waited so long.
Well, it's like everything, you know, when it was sort of dumped on me, it's like, well, hang on, this is all a bit weird until I can actually go and cast my eye over it and do a little bit of digging myself and try and understand what I'm talking about. You know, I can come out now and confidently say, well, it's definitely graphite. It corresponds with various other things.
Right.
What I say, I can actually confidently say, I really genuinely know this, and I'm not embarrassed to stand there and say it. Right, that's the end of the line. I can't find anything else out now. There's nowhere for me to go with it. We've got to bring in some other people whose area it is, who might be able to do something with it.
I would imagine that's a small amount of people that actually can.
Hopefully we can connect you up with someone. Yeah. But here's the thing that's amazing to me. When you look at these pieces with the naked eye, for like Amelia and I were complete novices, for example. So
me more than you.
But no, but seriously, you look at some of this, it looks like a freaking rock that's sitting in the bottom of the ocean. How much do you think could be in private collections because it's just off of a site, or how much goes unclaimed because people don't know what they're looking at? That is really something special.
Mm-hmm.
I think an awful lot is completely dismissed when it's found, simply because the people who look at it, they're trying to find things they do understand. And you pick up something, oh, what a weird bit of stone, don't know what that is, toss it away because it doesn't fit my knowledge. Where it comes unstuck is there aren't enough people who are simply curious that when you pick up something that you don't know what it is and you don't understand, that's actually what's really, really interesting, because we've all seen a Roman pot and a Greek vase and a Celtic piece of bronze. You know, you can look at those every day. What's interesting, certainly to me and the people I hang around with, is what the hell is that? I've not seen one of those in 50 years. God, that's good. Give me that. You know what I mean? Yeah. Because it's a stimulus. It's, well, what's coming next? It's the drive of where are we going with this? What little adventure are you going on? Because that's the whole intellectual stimulus and the driver. Is you don't really know what. If we go back on the site at some point, if we were able to dive on it with proper, more modern equipment, what else could you drag off the bottom of the ocean? What else is still there?
Yeah, it's true. You just don't have the eye for it. It just looks like, whereas you pick it up and like, oh, I see a layer over here and I see that there's metal over here. Oh, wait, it's graphite. People are like, what? How do you know? It's like a freaking rock.
Well, Hamilton's also an artist, so you do see things with a different mind.
Yeah. Definitely you do. Certainly you do. But I mean, if you could actually get a proper permission or go and do a dive somewhere across these sites, my guy was diving 20 or more years ago with the most basic equipment and the most poor quality cheap camera that was available.
Right.
I've seen the images he's got and they're fabulous. If you could now go with modern equipment and the sort of diving gear where you can stay underwater for an hour and a half at that sort of depth,
right.
What you might actually uncover, God only knows. There could be a whole factory of weird production of things. We just don't know.
It would be great to go down there with the same equipment that James Cameron used to film the Titanic, because at least you could get a really good shot, panoramic. Yeah.
I think
and it's not that far to go, right? So
no, I mean, I think it's
you need James Cameron. I'll get him on the phone. Give me a minute.
I mean, anybody with a submersible or remote control cameras, you could actually do it. But bear in mind, I think at the deepest point, it's only 90 feet. So it's not mega serious diving. It's only most basic PADI qualification diving. I mean, I've dived deeper than that, and I'm not an experienced diver at all.
No, but if you have that little sub that he used, the camera that's on there, the equipment that's on there is just
drones that do that now too, though.
Yeah,
it's
that's
not
true.
as expensive.
It's fun being in there.
You can imagine if it's only that far down. I mean, you have a city; it's got to be down deeper, like under. I mean, like there's a lot that's probably not been uncovered, or has government uncovered it. What is it about this specific site that makes it untouchable compared to other sites?
Don't know. Simply don't know. No, it's fascinating. There is obviously a reason that they wanted him off the site and they didn't want him exposing the things that he'd found. What is that reason? What are they hiding? I honestly don't
know. I know.
That's a hard one, because you think about if you do uncover and that these batteries were created all these years ago, you're talking about rewriting a lot of academia.
But that is happening, right?
I know, but there's in certain places, not in everywhere, because then you're taking out countries' inventors of things, that they have this pride for in this history. And then all of a sudden you're saying, well, we discovered that like so many years before you. It just becomes, it's egotistical in my opinion, but I would like to see it uncovered. I would like it to have a fresh approach. I think that we do have that society that wants to know now. And we don't look at it as, oh, your country, my country. It's a whole different perspective.
Well, I think you've also got what you're saying there is, say some fresh academics came on board and actually turned around and said, well, you know what? We think there were Baghdad batteries in the West 15,000 years ago, and we think this graphite was transported across the world, and very clearly we've proven that there was contact between cultures. What you've also done is proven every single academic for the last 200 years knows absolutely nothing, and they're completely wrong.
Yep,
which isn't going to go down well at all.
They've only learned from their mentors. It's not like they've traveled the world.
No.
Information is meant to be improved on. It's not meant to be buried. It's meant to be improved on. Discoveries are meant to be elaborated on.
Yeah,
totally. The more we evolve and our knowledge evolves, the more our findings should evolve.
Yeah, totally.
Everything is primitive, and things aren't primitive. We have technology now. Everything, like, there's just, it's just the good old boys. No, we're not going there. It's like, well, screw that.
I know. It also makes you wonder if it's because it's connected to ET, and that's why.
That is the one thing.
Maybe.
Yeah.
And probably the only thing right now that would shut down,
an investigation.
that site, for example, because they're only now talking about possibly having a disclosure on extraterrestrials, because it's all over the place. You can't hide it now. It's all over the place. But now I think at least for the US government, you look at like France and even England have been more open about it. Russia's been more open about it, but even FBI has opened up files on UFO sightings and ET sightings, and videos are surfacing. I mean, old videos that haven't been fudged, So you may get your wish of going in and being able to, dive this site, because I think now it's like, okay, well, it was really secretive 20, 30 years ago, but now we're disclosing, and it may not be, such a threatening thing.
Yeah. And I mean, you can't shut people up as easily. 20 years ago, when you hadn't got the internet and you hadn't got communications like we have today, you can turn up at somebody's house and frighten them to death.
Right.
You can do it.
Did it Roswell? The whole bully.
They've done it in lots of places. What are they going to do today? They can't suddenly raise this interview from the whole internet, the photos that have been put about. If they knock on my door and confiscate, we're taking your computer away. Well, it don't bother me. There's already 10 copies of all the photos and coordinates hidden around. You knock on my door, I'll just release them straight away. It doesn't really matter. You can't shut people up and frighten them in the same way.
Different times.
Well, you're prepared. Your friend wasn't prepared for that.
Exactly.
And you're prepared. So it's a second chance at this. It's important.
I mean, several people have said to me the best career move I could make is if they found me in a ditch. I'd suddenly become the most famous sort of explorer, finder, treasure hunter ever. I mean, it wouldn't do me any good, but it would certainly validate some of the things I've been.
It would make us sad.
It would make me sad, and they'd wipe away your entire existence. So
no, it's true. It's true. People do watch the show, and I wouldn't be surprised if people of like that watch the show,
I'm
here and there, depending on topic matter, depending on if you're a person of question, I guess, because we do have people of question come on to the show for sure, who delve in extraterrestrial research and stuff. And it still seems to be something that is, that they're just very interested in. Even though they probably know more than us, but we bring in people in the top of their fields. So
we bring it. We brought in former CIA, so that always brings attention. Sometimes the wrong attention for us, but it's good for them.
So,
so that's the only thing to me that would, really shut down a site, is if there was maybe ET tendencies. Are they going to shut down a site that's just because of the fact? I mean, 20 years ago they might have, just because it just proves, no, this has been here. We know this site is considerably older than what the academics want us to know. Everything is control nowadays, but worse now with some things. But I think with that being said, there's also things that are opening up. You're seeing museums now that are exhibiting giants, whereas the Smithsonian was destroying them. Now people are saying, okay, look, you can go into the United States and there's small museums that'll have giant skeletons. It's opening up. You can't hide it forever. Like you said, you can't hide it forever.
No, you can't hide it now in the way you could 20 years ago, and certainly not in the way you could 100 years ago. It's just not possible now.
No.
And I think people's attitudes are slightly different, where, you go back in history, people were scared of the government, and it was this sort of superpower that made you disappear. There's now a whole breed of people who simply don't care. It's right, this is what I've got. Do what you like, mate. Honestly, I don't care. It's me. Come and get me if you want. I don't mind, because it's great PR. You know what I mean? If you
That's a spirit, Hamilton. Take one for the team.
Yeah, totally. Here I am.
It would only benefit him if they did.
Yeah. Definitely. Well, exactly. It's almost
it validates everything that you're holding. That's what it does.
Come and knock on the door and arrest me for something or other. It would actually be the best PR you could get, because they've just validated the concerns that you've got. So they've had to come and pick you up and take you away.
They just told you, Hamilton, this is real. Yes, it is.
Yeah.
And you can't show it. Won't is because you basically publicly just said that there's 10 copies of everything everywhere.
Yeah, but it's hidden away.
Not only that, it's already been shown, so it's too late now.
You can't unshow a piece of ancient something or other. It can't be made to vanish anymore. This stuff, as of when the show goes out, however many people look at it and pass it around,
a few million.
There it is. Millions, there's the second Baghdad battery that's known to exist. The first one's disappeared and isn't ever going to be seen again. No. If you want to look at a Baghdad battery and study one, give us a call, because there ain't another one.
No.
Right.
So John tells us we're out to like 60 million streamers, so good luck.
Wow, okay. Well, I mean, out of that, if we could find just one or two sort of TV people, research people, magazine people, it doesn't really matter. Whatever the next foot on the ladder is to kind of start getting this stuff looked at. And TV is the obvious medium with the Amazons and the Netflixes now.
Oh my gosh, someone streaming on Netflix would be brilliant.
Yeah, that's what we need for us on a lot of the things we're working on, is to go up to something that's got a much bigger distribution.
Yeah.
So
I've worked with Netflix producers, so I can.
It's a trendy topic. It's big news at the moment. I don't know if anybody else has got any better artifacts or better stories. Go for it, but I haven't seen any.
Well, again, it's a matter of how much of it is in a private collection, and they're certainly not going to come forward with it because they don't want to see it in a museum, right? Because how many countries, where you're excavating things, and even on private property. I know England's like really big on it. It's like, no, this belongs, to us.
Yeah, we're having that.
Right, exactly. But most countries are like that. Oh, what? It's in the water off our shores. Well, if it's this much off, it belongs to us. Yep. So you have these private collectors sitting on items, because they're not going to send it to a museum. Heck, even the museums keep a lot of their stuff hidden.
That happened with Titanic because it was off the coast of Canada.
Right.
That was a big, huge issue when they started that museum tour and pulling up. There was a lot of problems with that.
It was, but they claim salvage,
you got
right?
Liverpool saying, "Hey, this is our ship, this is our stuff," and then you have Canada saying, "Well, it's in our waters. We pulled in your survivors."
No, it's true, and like I said, museums keep things hidden too. Like they're not just going to bring this out for everybody. So you may have possibly one collection that you are willing to put out there, you're willing to have examined, but in doing so, you need to be careful that they don't just disappear too.
Yeah.
Let's hope we create a bidding war for a show here.
Well, it's not
so that the right people hear this.
Ding, 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 bids open.
It's just trying to pull in the people who know how to handle something like this. I could sit there with a paper and pencil and write a TV show that would interest me. But that might not be the most commercial way to take this. We need to talk to the people who can get stuff onto Amazon and Netflix, because you've got to make something that's commercial if you want to spread it around the world.
And you see, I think that's the key right there, is going to somebody like Amazon or Netflix or Hulu, something like that, because mainstream stations don't shoot the messenger. I've just seen it happen. Okay. Where, and you guys being on TV also, I've had stuff that's gone, I've asked to contribute to productions and create a show, which I did. It got approved in Canada, got approved in UK, got approved in Europe, and amazingly, it hit a wall and it came to the United States. And now all of a sudden, I'm seeing something real similar. Mm-hmm. It's like, okay, not saying anything. I'm just saying it happens all the time, and everything becomes really controlled. I think when you go to documentary status, you know, it's not as limited. It's more
a docu-series.
It's not all suggestive. It's more serious. They touch on more and allow you to view more.
Sorry, the only difference here is that Hamilton owns the pieces that they need to film, so he has the leverage.
That's it.
It's not just a story. You're holding the pieces that are the story. So he's got more leverage. But I agree with you, because once you get it on Netflix or Amazon, Hulu, I don't know how they work, because I did do a show for them. I haven't seen it yet though, because I don't have the streaming site. But with Netflix and Amazon, you have the opportunity to be on both, because they often will share.
They do. Same with
their
Hulu.
Creations.
I've done all kinds of stuff for them, and they share. You know, some producers
I've never watched their stream.
They'll stream on all
They're
of them.
huge in the States. They're not so big here, but they're huge in the States. Yeah.
So
I mean, that's the sort of now we've exposed it. This is what we've got. This is what the story is. Okay, totally out of my hands now. Somebody's got to come along and pick it up. Simple as that. And then we'll talk to you.
Fingers crossed. I hope so for you. I think you're the perfect person for this. And I wish you all the best with this journey. I hope that this helps and bring a connection for you and for these pieces and the stories to be told.
My beer is empty. I'm just throwing the can away. Could either of you ladies suggest a really nice drink that I might enjoy that would quench my thirst?
I don't know.
Any ideas? If only.
Wait for the cup, Hamilton. Wait for the cup.
Sponsoring Hamilton.
We'll even send you some coffee.
We'll get Folgers. We'll get Joe to talk to Folgers.
Yeah, wait for it. So,
but no, I mean, the other thing you're saying, as soon as you get onto something, you know, if it's seen as working, everybody else is jumping on the bandwagon, trying to sort of take your IP. You know, we're having it. You know, we're finding it ourselves in the Templar stuff. Yeah,
this is what makes you unique. Also,
yeah, it's easy to copy somebody, but the number of people who can come up with something original, very, very slim.
Yeah, but it's like food. You have the brand names, and then you have the no-name brand, and the no-name brand never comes close to the brand. So it's the same thing. But you know, Apple encrypts, and I'll put that out there in case you want to sponsor us, because Michelle and I do use your products. But Apple does do encryption, so that's something to consider, because I've done it. So
I think. You know, it's easy for somebody to sit back and let someone else do all the research and then try to reap the rewards of that. But at the end of the day, you actually can put your money where your mouth is. You have the items.
Yeah, we've done it.
You know, and I don't know, maybe a good place to start is having a certain stone master, stonesmith, or stonemason look at it and go, oh, I see this looks like it would have been made with this or with this or with this, and something comparable in our day and age would be this or this, and
Sean would be the choice. I mean, he would be the first person I would wheel in if we can kind of get something going.
Yeah,
as part of it. I mean, I don't know anybody better on the stone than Sean is.
No, he's brilliant, and he's humble. He'll look at it just for the sake of being able to touch it.
And he just say, wow, you know, he understands the academic side, that he gets poo-pooed because he's simply spent his whole life dealing with stone, and he hasn't actually got a piece of paper that says you're good at stone. I mean, he gets the same problems we do. Oh, it's appalling.
Yeah, it's terrible. Right. He's so gifted.
And then just look at it. You know, you don't need a piece of paper. You just don't. He's just some of the best people out there, the ones you don't hear about.
Correct.
It doesn't need to be on a piece of paper. It doesn't.
There's so many artists from the Renaissance that were never I call them celebrified, and they're phenomenal, and they're so present in that time and so important, but yet we focus on the ones that are multiple rather than the little ones here and there,
Yeah, because they're brand names.
I think what you need to consider doing, because you have such a wide collection of unusual pieces, just your Venuses for another example, is maybe you need to do a series that just touches on, really touches on all of this unusual stuff. Everybody's looking for the glorified items, of the time. And again, you can use, people are into Templars. So what do? They come in, you present something that's like hard act to follow. But there are those of us out there who just are interested in history on average.
And art.
I love anything on ancient civilizations. I know that they're out there, and learning more and more, proving that they were out there. I like the ET connection, of course, because I do believe they've been around a lot longer than us. But I also believe that there were civilizations here, and the planet purges herself. The great floods, they've already shown there was a great flood. Bam, there we go. In comes another civilization, or some that survived went on to just to keep going. It's fascinating. And if you can find tidbits of that, and now with climate change, things are surfacing that just are,
Definitely. But there certainly is within the world of TV, when something is seen to be working, it's copy it.
Of course.
Yeah, 100%.
Mimics.
Yeah, always. You see that a lot in the paranormal.
Yeah.
Everywhere.
Yeah.
Any field.
Yeah.
Any field. Like I say, it's too easy to sit back and let somebody do all the work, and then turn around and try to cash in on their research, or stuff gets especially with internet, bits and pieces get hack jobs.
Something that we're just about to fall victim to, and I've known about this for months and months and months, is that, we've done the Templar story in Portugal. We're the first people to do it. We got the artifacts, rock and roll, it's worked. You will never guess who was filming in Portugal a couple of weeks ago. Go on.
Oh, I have to know. Well, William Shatner's show, The Unexplained, just did it.
The Oak Island crew, the next series that's coming out. Oh, what a total surprise. They have suddenly found a link between Templars and Oak Island and Portugal. Well, what a surprise.
Could have told them that before they even started filming, man.
I heard about this months and months ago, and I didn't know whether to hit the roof or fall about laughing, because, I know enough people and know I hear what's going on in Portugal, and I'd heard the researchers were sniffing around, and oh, what a surprise. Oh, yes, they've suddenly found a magical link that's going to tie up Tomar and Oak Island, and as if by magic, they were filming in exactly the same places we were there 2 years ago. And it's all supposed to be a big secret, but actually, guys, the way you find something out is spend 10 years in the place, then you get told what's going on. And, the production company making this program, they make everybody involved sign these onerous contracts, and you're going to get fined if you let any bit of information out. They completely forget that walking around a town, everybody in town knows who you are because you've seen you on television, you dummies.
Oh, it's a total... After this show airs, there's going to be a whole hell of a lot more people who's going to know.
Exactly. It's just staggering that all of a sudden, out of nowhere, as if by magic, there's this magical link for Oak Island and Templars and Tomar and the Shirola.
If they want to do that, why wouldn't they, collaborate with you? It just makes so much more sense artistically. Even for ratings, it makes more sense to bring the relic hunters together with Oak Island to complete that story. It doesn't make sense to take it one way. I think when you become a little bit greedy in that sense, it tends to backfire on you. Yeah,
the ratings have to keep going. The story has to continue.
Yeah, they have to keep
do?
I don't watch the show, so I'm being honest. I don't watch the show. I think I've seen one episode of it, and that was it. It just I have no patience whatsoever. I like immediate gratification. That's who I am. I can't handle watching a series for so many years. It's just me. No, it's just me. I like things to move fast, but I'm really disappointed that they didn't collaborate with you and Carl. I'm very disappointed in that because it would have made for better television, to be honest.
I mean,
it really would have.
When we were talking with History UK on Series 1, sitting in the boardroom table, we threw in the suggestion, Oak Island is your biggest programme. Why can't you get them over to us and we'll show them some stuff? Why can't we take a couple of pieces to Oak Island? And it was like, you just hit the wall here. They know exactly who we are. They know what we've got. I mean, I know some of the conversations that have taken place. They know exactly what we've got. They're coming to Tomar, making a programme about Lost Templar's treasure that's definitely in Oak Island, whilst not actually mentioning the fact, some other guys got some things. Where were they found? I remember Tomar, exactly the same places as we're copying them. I mean...
Because they'll let you do the work. It's the same, with Freddie. I mean, Freddie just filmed for who was it? William Shatner's show.
Because he's in New York right now.
Well, for Tomar. Yeah. For the Templars in Tomar.
Unbelievable.
It's surfacing, but Freddie at least spent 20 years doing the work, so good for him. It's like you guys, you spend 10 years doing the work. It's nice to get out there and have it recognized. But now all of this is coming to surface, and now you're seeing spin-offs. It's just like you're going to come out with this mysterious anomaly thing, and all of a sudden everybody and his brother is going to be coming up with an anomaly or an out-of-place artifact that people are going to have to look at. Because let's face it, this stuff gets fudged, right? People are going to try to fudge it.
Yeah, of course it does.
The world of antiquities is a shady one. There's a lot of stuff out there that's just...
There's a lot of corruption. There's a lot of crime with it.
There is. Yeah.
Well, it's not as bad as you think. It's grossly exaggerated.
Is it getting better then? Because, I know in some, like the tourist places like Egypt and stuff like that, I think they're fabricated. And,
well, yes, I mean, stuff has always been made for the tourists. Hang on, I've just got my cough sweets. Hang on, give me a sec.
Are you in your tickle trunk? Are you going to bring us something else?
No, I've been sucking on cough sweets and I've just got my packet. I don't know where it's gone. I'll get them later.
In the tickle trunk. What you got?
Back to my childhood.
What you got? No, you're supposed to have something for us.
No, my packet of lockets has disappeared. No, I mean, I just find it, so disappointing in a way that you've put so much groundwork into stuff and you've got genuine fabulous stories. And all of a sudden, somebody comes along just because they've got a bigger budget than you. They can completely make stories up. Oh, well, we've got 70 to 80 million viewing figures per show around the world. Oh, brilliant. This suddenly becomes our idea. Don't worry about them. Yeah, don't talk to them. I don't know whether you take it as a compliment or you should go round and punch somebody. I don't really know. I mean, it's just...
I actually understand where you're coming from on that. Everybody seems to think it should be honored that somebody is mimicking. It was like, hell no. I work my ass off. No, but I understand with something is not such a big deal.
Yeah,
but
it's supposed to be this kind of great big secret that they're going to reveal in their next series.
Right.
It's farcical. I mean, absolutely start raving mad. It's nothing but just commercializing something for the sake of them pulling in $700,000 an episode, which is what their budget is to make their program. And they don't care if they just make things up. I mean, it is nonsense. Absolute nonsense. The whole thing.
And then you also have the Portuguese government letting them go.
Yeah, great PR for the town. Oh, the Oak Island people.
Tourist town, especially after COVID.
Well, they were in France a couple of years ago, weren't they?
Yeah, they were up at Montségur. I think I don't watch. I've got no pay TV.
Yeah, because of a cross that they found.
But who do they find the time? They've got 3 shows, don't they? They have all these shows just spinning off of the one. I don't know how they have the time to put in the proper work for it. I don't know. I don't, like I said, I don't watch the program.
But there's one thing I will say, because as the owners and their one partner, I watched a show on it, and they were using a shipwreck site off the coast of Florida that they had heavily, as partners, the two brothers and their partner, invested like millions of dollars into it, and the government just came along with, and they lost everything. They lost everything.
Florida's very difficult.
Yeah, so they've definitely paid their dues in some ways, for sure. At a really, that's a lot of money to invest in this type of research, as you know, with the Tomar Hoard, right? It's a lot of money. It's a lot of time, and sometimes you win, sometimes you don't win. But I think that comes down to also knowing the way around certain things too, things like that, right?
Yeah,
but
it helps.
But I know that it's kind of crappy to see that happening.
It's diabolical. I mean, when you think the viewing figures that we're getting, when you've got proper stuff and proper things that you can genuinely quantify, and whenever this series comes out, whenever it is, January, February, March, you've got all these sycophants, it's wonderful, look what these guys have found. They don't even produce a single rusty nail or a piece of wood. I mean, it's just waffle that goes on and on and on. They're into the 9th series of it. I mean, honestly.
Okay, let's pick your brain. Between the three of us and the millions of people who are going to hear this or watch it.
There's nobody listening.
Yeah, not right now. What are your thoughts? Do you think there's something there? Do you think they're going to find it? And I know I'm probably putting you on the spot, but you're the one who just throws caution to the wind and really doesn't give a crap. So I'm going for it.
What's the story of the whole Oak Island thing, do you mean?
Yeah. Do you think they're going to find something substantial?
Well, bear in mind, this story goes back to, I think it's the 1780s when it first started. And without any question, there was something fascinating going on that island that somebody started digging around in the 1780s. Now, what they like to gloss over, because it doesn't make good TV, is pointing out simple things like, we have found some wood that dates from the medieval period. Yeah, absolutely fantastic. Well, anybody arriving in America in a ship at some point, 15th, 16th, 17th century, well, if they've used the wood of the ship or they bought constructional wood with them, well, the wood is already 200 or 300 years old, or it wouldn't be big enough pieces of wood to actually make a ship out of.
That's true.
So finding a piece of 13th, 14th century wood doesn't mean anybody was there. Yeah, well, from anywhere, finding a piece of wood from the 13th, 14th century more or less proves that nobody was there in period that they came 200 to 300 years later. Basic physics.
Right.
If you look at, supposedly when you look at the original digging and boring of holes whenever it was, and supposedly there was a burst through into a chamber and they punctured the seawall and the sea rushed in and it flooded it whenever that was. Well, very basic physics tells you that if you puncture a chamber like that and there's this sudden rush of water into the chamber, well, the back pressure that's created when it sucks the water out again will suck out anything that's in the chamber anyway. They're the most...
It's just like a sinking ship. If a ship's sinking and you're anywhere near it, you're going to go with it, and then you're going to be tossed back, and then you'll be tossed back up when that pressure releases. You're dead. So
there is the most rudimental laws of physics that are conveniently ignored because it doesn't make good TV. It's just been sensationalized. I don't know what the hole was dug for in the first place, and I don't think anybody ever will. I think it's one of those things that will just go on and on and on because it's a massive cash cow, and it just goes, the money that it generates is staggering. And it doesn't matter how tenuous your ideas are. I mean, they've wheeled in so many people over the years with these crackpot theories, trying to link it with lines to Jerusalem, lines from somewhere else. Oh, the French king.
Well, Henry Sinclair was there, but that predates everything else.
You know, it lines up with Versailles. So whatever was hidden at Versailles was then moved. Francis Bacon was there. William Shakespeare's documents were buried there. I mean, whatever harebrained scheme that anybody dreams up to get their face on television, it's selling programs around the world.
You know, I think people like you and Carl and the Laguna brothers are probably surrounded by a lot of opportunists at all times.
Yes, I mean, they've got the added advantage. They've done, 9 series of 15 or 20 programs with all the spin-offs and everything else. It's fantastic marketing. The company that makes it clearly doesn't care what programs contain facts or fiction. They're making a product that sells around the world and earns an enormous amount of money. It's business. You can't knock them for that. It's business. If they can steal somebody else's IP or ideas and use it themselves, that's how business works. It certainly annoys me, but it's business. You know, that's how it is. It makes no difference to them if they don't find $1 worth of rubbish in a series. It's irrelevant because the money is made. It's a business. It has no relevance to history. It never will have. It's nonsense. But it's a business. TV is a business, and it is.
It's big business. Sponsors, things like that, for sure. For sure. I know we love our sponsors.
Everybody does. Everybody does.
Dr. Snick. Yeah.
God.
You know, no.
But, you know, I don't know. It's just for when you sit like, not only me, I mean, I've spoken to other people who have had their ideas stolen. You know, it's just very, very irritating that you have to see them taking all of the credit and the glory for absolutely nothing to do with them whatsoever. If we hadn't have been in Portugal doing our stuff and be broadcast in America, they wouldn't be there, neither would anybody else.
Well, they haven't to this point. Honestly, you know, I've learned more just from reading Freddie's stuff and watching your stuff and knowing you guys personally and having, you know, reading your book, right? And where the whole Portuguese connection, everything I read before just didn't seem to make a lot of sense. And then when I read Freddie's stuff, I went, what? The first freaking thing that makes any sense. And you guys come on board. I'm like, what? Oh, that happens in threes. Where's the next one? You know, so. But seriously, like it is. I feel for you guys because I know you have a lot of time and money, you know, invested into all of this, and all you can do is keep forging ahead. So, with that being said, we've got this amazing collection. Is there anything else that you have coming up that you want to share with everybody?
We had an interesting meeting with an American potential back about a month ago about possibly doing some sort of World War II stuff and part of the sort of some of the better World War II items that are hidden away. We're still talking. He seems keen enough, but like everything, to try and actually get a deal put together. Nothing happens in December. Everybody's too busy. Nothing's going to happen in January because everybody's recovering.
They don't come back to the middle of January.
You're not going to get any form of meaningful anything until the middle of January.
That's true.
So it just feels like you're a little bit stuck in limbo at the moment.
Until you say you're no longer interested and they realize the one thing that they want, you have. Well, like, forget about it.
Well, that's it. You know, although it's very frustrating that, you know, you want to crack on with things straight away. And in normal business, like me and Carl do, well, you're shown something, you either have it or you don't. And if you don't, you missed it. The whole TV world doesn't seem to work like that. They need to scratch their heads and have 20 management meetings over a 6-month period.
Right.
So, you know, we just sit and wait. But our logic is, I don't think there's anybody else out there with any better objects or better ideas. we're not going to be rushed into it. If it takes a little while to find the right people to come on board, no, we'll sit and wait. It doesn't really matter.
You want to do it right.
Yeah,
it's important.
You got time on your side. You do.
Yeah.
Especially the whole world's in turmoil again.
Well,
so,
we're back on everybody's getting in a mass panic about another variant that nobody's actually ill from, but it suits everybody to go into a mass panic for some reason. If we got a commission today, are we back in the same problem where we can't travel and we're just running like loonies trying to keep ahead of restrictions again? Which
France is already batting down the hatches.
Yeah, exactly.
Too.
Perhaps it would be too difficult to film in some countries again, and the aggravation of it. Maybe we're actually just better waiting. I don't know. I haven't got the answers. I wish I had. Really?
I think everything happens for a reason.
Yeah.
Yes. But I mean, you have 2 shows out right now that are doing phenomenally well worldwide, right?
Well, from what we gather, certainly in Europe, we're doing remarkably well.
Right.
The little bit of feedback we've had from America, Discovery appear to be happy with the figures, whatever they are. We haven't actually been told them, but we're told they're acceptable. And they're standing up. I mean, I don't know what that means.
Well, that means it's a good potential for season 3.
Well, maybe. But, that's we just don't actually know. So we're just beavering away on our own ideas. And it's kind of why we're throwing this open now. Is that maybe that's what we need, is a bit of competition, and we need some other people to come in and start talking and try and hurry it along. Honestly, we don't know. It's not
my friend. There is no competition with you guys. Well, just saying,
with the things like what we've just talked about, there certainly isn't. I mean, nobody else is going to put this sort of stuff on the table.
You can come on. You can dress. You can. What's the term you can put? You can fancy up and dress a monkey, but it's still a monkey. You know what I mean? It's not, you can dress it up. It's still not what the original is. It is what it is. They're not, they can do whatever they want. They're still not you. It's still not your research. It's still not your format, your collection. It's going and looking for information. There's so many shows that are doing it right now. Like I said, William Shatner's Unexplained just did a thing on Templars. They were also, if I'm not mistaken, in Tomar.
Okay, I'll try and find that. That would be interesting.
Yeah. And that's brand new. That was within the last 2-3 weeks.
Well, then some of the people on Canada or the UK yet.
No,
America gets it first.
Well, it is because some of you people on your Lost Relics page were making mention of it. So but the History Channel, I guess, is just a little bit different with times in the UK than the History Channel on this side of things.
I haven't got any pay TV channels at all, so unless it comes up on YouTube, I don't get to see any of these things.
It might, because it's public.
You might be able to just go to their website and scroll down and catch a glimpse of it.
Yeah, mate. I have interest.
It was a good episode.
Right.
It was a really good episode. But again, there they are in
our zone. Yeah, it just seems to me, it's very peculiar. All of these people are talking and waffling, but nobody puts anything on the table. Nobody finds anything. Nobody's got anything you can actually sit there and hold and talk about.
Your shows,
it's all just theory and concept or guesswork.
It's true. Well, that's what I'm saying. You're providing a product.
Yeah,
at least like physical. You can touch it. it's here. It exists.
So I mean, maybe that's why we've got more of a chance with the sort of ancient alien-y type people, because there is nothing whatsoever existing. It's all concept and theory, where for the first time somebody's come out of nowhere. This is the exact spot where it was found. Here it is. Deal with it. That's a great opportunity for somebody, who's creative.
It is. It's very exciting. I would love to see something.
I think we've just got to sit and wait till next year, because the next 6 weeks everybody's too busy or recovering.
Absolutely.
Or not going to happen.
Except for us, we'll still be going.
We're on all the way up to the 23rd, and then we come back.
Yeah, we're still here.
Who else have you got?
29th and 30th we're on as well.
Okay. What other topics are you covering over the next sort of this month?
Oh God, what do we have this month? I don't have my book in front of me. Do you have it, Amelia? We've got tomorrow night is the deciphering of codes and the Book of Revelations and the Book of Enoch, which is going to be really good.
Yeah,
so she'll tell you because I don't have
paranormal, but a very light one.
We kept it light for December, but really, it's still really a lot of. There'll be some extraterrestrial stuff, and I can send it to you.
We have on the 23rd we have Dawn Panamori.
Yeah.
And actually on the 30th we're doing something really fun. We're doing predictions and astrology. So that'll be fun right before New Year's Eve.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, and we have Gail Hasten on the 29th.
I have all this stuff put aside what everyone does.
I just have their names.
But you know what, Hamilton, like anytime you'd like, much like what we've done today, if there's part of your collection you would like to feature with us, we'd be happy to have you come on and talk about it and put it out there. We talk about a lot of different things, and especially if it's being featured here first, of course, then we're always happy to say, what do you have for us this time? And it just, to me, it could open up like a whole other series, like, the Lost Relic Hunters or Relic Hunters. This is what we have to talk about this time. Our people love freaking show and tell. Are you kidding?
Oh my gosh, they absolutely love it. They love learning. Yeah, as do I.
So with that being said, though, I have to sign off this segment. As it is, we won't be allowed on Twitch because we're going to be too long.
I was just thinking that. I said, oh my God, we're not going to make
Twitch people, sorry. But hang tight, Hamilton. I'm just going to get us ready to go. So we've come to the end of another fantastic segment here on the Outer Realm with, of course, Hamilton White, who's just always a pleasure. And guys, you have to tune in tonight. You're not going to want to miss this. But mind you, by the time you're seeing it, you are going to have seen it and be listening to the segment. So we definitely want to hear your feedback. Let us know if you're interested in working with the guys on this collection, and if you'd like to see them come on with other amazing pieces that they have. Big thank you to Folgers Coffee. As you know, we've been having a good time with you guys tonight. Lots of. So, and thank you to Dr. Snick, aka Justin Snicker, for our intro and outro. We just love you guys. You make us who we are, and that much better. So remember to subscribe to the International Public Radio, UFO Paranormal Radio, and UFO Gods and Extraterrestrials. I think I got that right. My gosh.
You did. Yes,
yay.
You did.
So head on over into the YouTube channels and please subscribe. Show us some love. Find us on the Outer Realm Facebook group page. Like us up. And please contact only if you're looking, for comments and such. Please just go to the Outer Realm Contact at gmail.com. Again, the Outer Realm Contact at gmail.com. It's really hard. There's just so many groups and personal messages. We just have difficulty keeping up with it. So one place actually helps me personally a lot. Tune in tomorrow night as we welcome the return of Micah Dank, who's going to be discussing and decoding the Book of Enoch and the Book of Revelations. So yes, you're not going to want to miss that. So we thank you all, and good night.
You have been listening to The Outer Realm with Michelle DeRoche and Amelia Pisano, airing live every Wednesday and Thursday evening, 9 to 11 p.m. Eastern, 8 to 10 p.m. Central, on the United Public Radio Network, 105.3 FM in New Orleans.